then Lakeisha's going to manage the waiting room. After this, I don't think I need the webinar version of Zoom anymore. I don't. Right. It costs too much. You can do the same thing with Zoom meetings instead of the webinar.
Yeah.
Your background looks nice, Christian. Is that your office or is that a virtual background?
Both. So what I did was, because behind me in my office is just like a whiteboard with a lot of personal stuff on it, I took a picture like from sitting at my desk. This is what I see sitting at my desk. And then just made that my virtual background.
That's smart. I'm in a little nook over here by my bookshelf, but this is not where I work at.
Yeah. So I stole the idea from like a client who like had their office, a picture of it as a virtual background. I was like, "Are you in the office?" And they were like, "No, I just took a picture of it and made it a virtual background." I was like,
"That is
stolen idea."
All right, we have some folks joining now, so welcome. We are going to get started momentarily. I think we're right at a couple minutes after, so we'll get started once some more folks join. I'm also going to try to figure out how to go live on Facebook. It worked last time.
Yeah, I've been doing 2 screens, like trying to make that happen. If you figure it out, let me know. I'm curious.
All right, Facebook is cooperating today.
That's awesome.
Now I know.
Wait. How many people do we have in the webinar so far?
We have 5 attendees.
Okay.
Present.
All right, we'll wait 1 more minute and then we'll get started in the interest of time. Where's my meeting controls? Oh, here they are. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. It looks like our technology is cooperating, and in the interest of you guys' time, I want to go ahead and jump right in. So that's what we're going to do. Welcome, and happy Thursday to everyone. Thank you for being here. Of course, today is part 3 in our live webinar series, Pivot Your Business, and this one is focused on strategic planning during a downturn with my friend, Dr. Christian Friend. He is the president and CEO of CA Friend Consulting. Thank you, Christian, for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Christine. Glad to be here.
Thanks. So we also have Lakeisha Orr. She's our technical specialist today. So if anybody has any technical issues or questions, please reach out to Lakeisha. We also have the Q&A function enabled for the webinar. So at the bottom of your screen, if you're using a desktop or if you're using a laptop, you should have a participants button where you can see who all is registered and inside of the webinar. There's also a Q&A function where you click that and you can ask a question directly to the panelists. And we also have, I don't think polling is enabled, but you should be able to raise your hand. So if you use the raise your hand function, then we'll know that you have a question. You also have the ability to unmute yourself, but we're going to ask that all attendees stay on mute and all attendees keep their videos off for the duration of the event. So we're going to get started. Thank y'all for being here. I'm going to actually start by telling you guys about Amplify. So, all right, so what is Amplify? Who are we? Why am I doing this, right? So due to COVID-19, we actually had to pivot ourselves. So we had an event planned for April 25th, and it was our first live event that was focused on this government contracting topic that I've been, we've been trying to become leaders in this space. And so this was our first live event, and then boom, at the start of March, everything, just wanting to focus on safety, everything locked down. And then when it came to April, I was thinking, okay, how can we pivot and still be successful in this? So anyway, what we ended up doing was doing 3 different webinars. We had 3 panelists lined up for that event, and that's what we're doing today. So as you can see on the screen, Amplify Charlotte is a social impact consulting firm. I started Amplify Charlotte in 2018. Amplify Consulting is the legal name of the business, but we work under the brand Amplify Charlotte. And this is what we do. We are certified at the city level, state level, and this is brand new. Just this week, we became certified with the Small Business Administration WOSB certification. And so we're really, really happy about that. And the importance of having these designations basically is because the government sets aside money for small businesses and minority-owned and women-owned businesses. So a little bit more about who we are. My personal philosophy is voice, representation, and change. So when we started Amplify Charlotte in 2018, it was through a grant with the Knight Foundation, and it was focused on civic engagement and really just getting your voice heard. And that's where voice, representation, and change came from. Getting your voice heard in front of the city council, looking at your representatives and making sure that they're representative of you and your community, and then change, making change at the community level. I've been working in communication for over a decade. I've been working in local government for over a decade, and just some social proof. We actually were able to land 5-figure subcontracts, 2 of them, within 6 months of becoming certified. And at the bottom of the screen, you can see some of our current and past clients. All right, so enough about me. I want to get to know who you guys are. So here's our agenda for today. I'd love to do a little bit of networking and just getting to know a couple of the people who are in the webinar today. And so in a second, I'm going to actually ask you to introduce yourself, just a handful of you. But prior to that, I would love to go over some quick announcements and just share some resources with y'all about some of the resources that have been released recently. Just bear with me for a second. The first one is the City of Charlotte. Earlier this week, they are partnering up with LISC, L-I-S-C, excuse me, and they have a micro business relief fund. And it is a fund, it is $1 million fund created to provide grants to support micro enterprises, and you will be eligible for up to $10,000. A micro enterprise is a business, is a for-profit business with 5 or fewer employees. In this particular fund, your business has to be located in an opportunity corridor in the city of Charlotte. So the website, if you could place this in the chat, the website to find out about this is www.lisc.org. So that is $1 million relief fund. If you are, dealing with issues with payroll, if you're dealing with issues with just maintaining, I would really encourage you to research that. The second relief opportunity is, so that one was with the City of Charlotte and LISC. The second one is actually with Mecklenburg County government. Now, Mecklenburg County government has two loan programs. One is called the Small Business Stabilization Loan. And again, you have to be located within Mecklenburg County, and you have to be in business with 2 years of operation, and you could be eligible for between $5,000 and $35,000. And the next one is, they also have this micro business loan program that is for the towns. So excluding the City of Charlotte, if your business is in Mint Hill or Matthews or one of these surrounding towns, you are also eligible for some of this funding. The website for that one is mecnc.gov. All right, cool. Oh, we got some folks. Okay, great. So that is that. Sorry. Last announcement is about Packard Place. Who all is familiar with Packard Place? If you're familiar with Packard Place, go ahead and let us know in the chat room. So Packard Place is a local co-working space and small business accelerator. Not even just small business accelerator, they're actually a technology accelerator, and they have exited quite a few large businesses that went through the Packard Place co-working space and accelerator, like Avid Exchange. This is a $1 billion tech corporation. For example, Avid Exchange, you might have heard of Map Anywhere, and really it's tech focused. So why am I talking about this, right? The reason I'm talking about this is because Amplify Charlotte actually has a media partnership and a fellowship with Packard Place, okay? And this past month, we've been joining them every single Wednesday at their public house event. And a public house event is basically it's like a meetup, okay? It's a meetup over beer. It's very casual. And the link for that is packard.place/events. And what they do is they have a social check-in where you can check in with other small business owners over, a drink. You can share what you're sipping on. And then they also have some community networking. And then they have a panel discussion with 3 CEOs or a number of CEOs. And for the next one they have coming up, they actually have Desmond Wiggin, and he's a friend of mine. He is the CEO of a company called Battery Exchange. And just full disclosure, because we're all family here, I do want to share that these events can be a little bit more diverse. And so that's why I'm here just spreading the good word, because I really want our community to just get out there and network with one another. It's very important not to just be, focused on one type of industry. So that's that. All right, so let's get to know one another here. So some of the industries and organizations that we have represented on the webinar today include, I saw some folks from Mecklenburg County, Central Piedmont Community College. We have some independent filmmakers, real estate experts, folks who specialize in insurance benefits, leadership coaches on the call. We've got diversity and inclusion coaches, and we also have somebody here from the city of Dallas. So I really I appreciate you guys being here today. If you can go ahead, just volunteer when you're ready, go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us why you joined the call today and how you're pivoting and what you're most looking forward to after all this is over. Who wants to go first? Is there a better way to do this? Who wants to go first? All right, I'm gonna just pick somebody. Let's hear from Miss Rashawn.
Good afternoon. I didn't have an unmute button, so I'm glad you called on me.
Sorry about that. I didn't realize that.
So the feature works great. I am here I'm Rashawn Peak. I am the founder and president of Your Girl Inc. We provide lead generation, sponsorship, procurement, and communications to nonprofits and small businesses. And I'm here really to support you in your efforts and be a cheerleader and see what's going on in the city.
Thank you, Rashawn. Thanks for being here. All right. I'm sorry, I have everybody muted. I'm going to allow you guys to chat if you would like. Let's hear from Liz. Would you like to introduce yourself, Liz?
Hi, everyone. How are you? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. My name is Liz Doggett. I am actually on the call as a representative of Central Piedmont Community College. Our department in career services is career services, and we help students who are graduating figure out where they're going to go, and help students who are coming in figure out what they're going to do at the college. And so I thought this was a timely topic as we start to figure out how businesses will be pivoting around this. I want to put myself out there as a connector around for employers, for potential employers who might be looking for folks. I know now may not be the key time for that, but just to put that out there. But also just to get an idea of where our department could go, and see what kinds of tips and tricks I could hear about, because I feel like opportunities like this where we can cross industries have often been helpful to me in my work and my position. So I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining. All right. Let's get one more. Let's get one more person to share. All right, Leo. Let's hear from you.
How did I know I was going to get called on? Hi, Christine. Hey, my name is Leo Scarpati with L5 Consultants. We actually specialize in community engagement, diversity, and inclusion trainings. And what we've been doing in pivoting is kind of helping small to medium-sized organizations in developing outreach plans on how to better serve multicultural communities during this pandemic.
Awesome. It sounds like you're doing really important work. And just one thing about that, we talk about serving multicultural communities because we know that these communities are being disproportionately impacted by the effects of COVID-19 and the fallout. And so that's why it's so important. And that's why also it's important to be able for you to be flexible to pivot. So if your company doesn't specialize in outreach, or your company doesn't specialize in, supplying medical supplies, but if you're nimble enough, right, and you create these partnerships, you could still be successful and you could still serve the communities that need to be served. So, all right, thanks for being here. All right, I'm going to put you guys back on mute. But if you do want to, sorry, y'all. If you do want to talk, feel free to raise your hand or just put a question in the question box. All right, so we're going to move forward. Before we hop into the discussion questions, I'm going to give Dr. Friend a proper introduction. All right, so Dr. Christian Friend is the president and CEO of CA Friend Consulting. CA Friend Consulting provides best-in-class business solutions and thought leadership to nonprofit and human service organizations. Dr. Friend holds a bachelor's degree in history from the University of Pennsylvania and a master's degree in social sciences from the University of Chicago. He also holds a PhD in human development and family studies from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. All right, that's my alma mater too. Go Spartans.
Spartans.
Yeah, Dr. Friend began his career as a public school teacher. He then went on to develop youth programs in low-income housing communities. Upon completion of his doctoral program, he served as a director at the UNC Charlotte Urban Institute. And he also served as a senior program officer for Renaissance West Community Initiative, and he has published multiple articles in peer-reviewed academic journals and regularly presents at academic and professional conferences. Dr. Friend spends much of his free time on his own development and volunteerism. He is a published poet and alumnus of the community building initiatives leadership development initiatives. And that is where I met Christian. He also serves on the board of directors for Crisis Assistance Ministry, Sugar Creek Charter School, and the Agape Love Christian Ministries. Everybody welcome Dr. Friend. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's just hop right into our first question. I would love to hear about your journey to starting your business.
Yeah. So for me, everything I do is missional and based on mission. And so really the journey started like as a kid. In high school, I was really interested in disparities, racial disparities, economic disparities, and just things I noticed kind of growing up. And I had a lot of questions about, and that's what led to my bachelor's degree, just understanding historical context and how kind of things in society came about. And then I realized, oh, there's a science to figuring this out, which includes kind of data analysis and understanding social variables, which led to the master's degree. And so my work history, even beginning as a classroom teacher here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools here in Charlotte, was always about like, how do I serve underserved communities, particularly low income and or ethnic minority communities where I see these disparities. After a few different roles, I landed at the United Way of Central Carolinas, where there's a $20 million+ annual fundraising campaign, and then those dollars get distributed to these 90 nonprofit organizations, 90 or more, to provide services to these communities. And so I'm learning about how these systems and institutions function to serve communities. And then what I learned as I moved through my career is that I witnessed a $20 million campaign and was a part of it. With Project Lift, where I work, it's a $15 million campaign. I saw $90 million raised at Renaissance West Community Initiative, including federal funds. And so sometimes we talk about kind of community needs as like, hey, we need resources. And what I realized was, hey, there are ample resources, particularly in Charlotte. And I've worked in other communities. So when I see Charlotte, I draw a sharp contrast because of how well resourced we are here. And it made me realize if we could use these resources more efficiently, particularly in nonprofit and human service agencies, then we could create greater impact for our clients and communities. And so in 2008, while I was still working, I think at the time I was at UNC Charlotte Urban Institute, I created CA Friend Consulting with this theory of change, that if we could use these resources more efficiently. And what I landed on was there are business processes that started in manufacturing. Some people understand them, Six Sigma, Lean, like these business processes for continuous improvement, which have been proven and tested. And so if we could use these data-based, research-based strategies for nonprofit and human services, then we can improve the operations and the programs of these human service organizations and create greater impacts for our communities. And that's what CA Friend Consulting has done since 2008, and that's what we're heavily invested in now, is just helping organizations to continuously improve.
Great, thank you. One of the things that I meant to do was go through your introductory slides.
Yeah, well, sure. I can briefly walk you through some of these, but I will be very brief. And you can see there, I mentioned that we're missional, and I probably hit on many of these talking points. And our mission ultimately is to help create and sustain thriving communities. Like what we want to do is help communities grow. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that this is the theory of change that I discussed earlier, just the idea that there are sufficient resources available. And so if we can apply best practices via our training and consultation, then we can help these organizations continuously improve. And if the organizations do well, the communities will do well. And we apply our values. It's really important for us to understand not just why we're doing it or what we're doing it, but how. We never want to lose sight of how. And I think this is important for a lot of organizations, because sometimes folks will say, on that pivot you discussed during a downturn, it's like, well, we can do this thing and it's okay to change what you do operationally, but it's important to maintain values, or else you find yourself somewhere down the road doing something else. So you can see our values there. We're small, like a lot of independently owned small businesses. I'm the president. We have some folks who serve as principal consultants, and we have a team member who serves as administrative support, and that's about it. And we bring in technical specialists or technical aides for certain projects. This is me. You've done a great job of introducing me. Thank you, Christine. I got a little more hair now since the pandemic is sheltering in place. And so this is the idea of what it looks like. This is the process we share, and we this isn't a secret. This isn't proprietary in any way. You can see references at the bottom of our slides from where these things come from, because again, we're missional. The idea is to get this information out. And so the idea is that if you start any process, any planning system, anything you do, any operation, by doing some sort of assessment, figuring out what it is you're trying to do, what do you need, what do the data say, then you can use that data to create a plan, and then you implement the plan, and then you assess. And once you do that kind of second round of assessment on this iterative process, is what we call it, because you just keep going around and around, you'll say, okay, well, what worked well in our implementation, what didn't work well, and then you can revise the plan. And this can be, if you go to the next slide, this can be a year-long process, which is what we suggest as folks are getting started, right? To develop not just kind of how to do this continuous improvement, but what are your key performance indicators for your organization? What are you measuring at different points throughout the year to ensure that you're on track with your planning? And it can also be something where it's kind of a very short process. Sometimes we just call it a program evaluation, where it's like you've got one program or one process that you want to assess and then revise the plan and implement it. And then these next few slides just give the details of what's included in each of those packages. And so we don't have to share that level of detail here, just in the interest of time. But the idea is that our goal is just to help everyone to continuously improve. And so we offer a variety of services that fall anywhere in that continuous improvement process of assess, plan, and implement. And it's my hope that, you know, from today, if folks have questions or need anything, that they can reach out, because in general, our clients are really satisfied. We've got 100% of our clients rate our customer service as excellent. 100% of our clients rate the quality of our work products as good or excellent. And in general, folks are happy to work with us. So we're happy to be working with them.
Very good, thank you. All right. So the next question is, what are the tips that small businesses need to know? What are the steps that we need to take in order to pivot through this disruption using these strategic planning guidelines?
Yeah, so you're gonna get tired of me using the terms continuous improvement and assess, plan, and implement by the time we get off this call. But those are the things. But I will frame this by saying a pandemic is different. So in some of this, again, everything we do is research based. If you go to our website and just follow us on social media, you'll see that we've recently posted a podcast from Harvard Business Review that talks about a lot of what I'm going to share. But a pandemic is different than most people's crisis response plans are prepared for. Most crisis response plans are for a hurricane or earthquake or some sort of temporary disruption that lasts usually a few weeks maximum. Sometimes it's a hurricane, the actual event lasts a few hours, and then it's, okay, how do we rebuild? A pandemic's unusual in that it is an extended event. The crisis itself has, in essence, it's already lasting several months, and we're not sure how much longer it's going to last. So the challenge becomes in not just for nonprofits and human service agencies, but for Fortune 500 companies. They've had crisis response plans that they essentially have to throw out the window at this point. So what can you do? So what you can do is go through these steps, right? So hopefully everyone who's operating a business has some sort of business plan, operational plan, strategic plan. They've got some sort of plan that they're working with already. Now is the time to revisit that plan. And you revisit that plan by doing some sort of assessment. You look at where you are, what you've accomplished. You look at where you were trying to get in the last year or so, or whatever the term of your plan is. and you start to make adjustments to that. You start to revise the plan. I will say that part of the assessment in this environment is to explore every opportunity. So one of the things I've been advising clients on, and that we've been doing ourselves at CA Friend Consulting, is to explore every opportunity that's out there. The LISC opportunity you just mentioned, the SBA loans, everything that's out there. Part of your assessment is to, at a minimum, explore all those opportunities. And then you can get into your planning phase, which is that business plan. Hey, it's time to start thinking about, are there budget cuts required? Where do those cuts happen? And these are, and I guess what most folks are doing this, what I'm suggesting is to be intentional about it, right? And so some folks are saying, oh my goodness, well, we're gonna have to lay folks off, or, you know, we're gonna have to do this. But be intentional about having a plan of how you're going to do that, and then start to implement the plan. And what you'll find is that that cycle, which I suggested, like maybe it's a year long, in a crisis that becomes very much shortened, right? So for us, we had a strategic plan for CA Friend Consulting. There's a whiteboard in our office which has kind of where we are in the plan on that. We went in, we erased everything on the whiteboard. And we said, okay, here we go. Let's revisit where we started. Let's create a new plan based on what we know. And every day, essentially now, we're kind of revisiting that and saying what strategy needs to come off, what needs to go on, what new resource do we have. And so it's still an iterative process for us. It's a very much shrunk down process to make sure that we're responding to an ever-changing environment.
Got it. So it sounds like being intentional is very important, and exploring all of your options is very important. And it sounds like having a plan in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go off script a little bit before we go to the next question, because I'm curious, because the situation is changing daily, especially with COVID-19. So the plans that we had in place at the beginning of April have now shifted towards the end of April because, of course, here in North Carolina, the Governor Cooper has, we've started phase 1. And so that means some retail businesses can now open back up. And so that means that business is starting to, over the next week or so, we're going to see what happens. So how does that look different? How does your plan and your goals look different versus the first part of the month, which was, button down the hatches, we're in for the long haul. But now it's like, okay, well, we could, gradually get back to business. So what's the difference there, and how should people treat this differently?
Yeah, I mean, some of this is like, oh, hindsight is 2020, and the best examples I can give are from what we've done here at CA Friend Consulting. And what we've done was, when we recognized kind of the scale and scope of this in March, oh, this is a pandemic. It was, how do we get as lean as possible? And so we went through and we started literally line items on our budget, like what do we need, what do we not need? And we can go through and we did our budget planning like that. And so we got very lean very quickly. And what we're realizing even now is that while we've had some temporary kind of economic setbacks, or we're prepared for them, that in fact, this has become a time for opportunity in some ways. And so increasingly, as the rest of the country has adopted to virtual business, like our business has continued. And so that means now we're operating in abundance, if you will, that we're fortunate in that we can think about not scaling back up, not, oh, we've got this now, we can add these things back in. It's like, but now that we're operating leaner, now that we're operating like this, it's like, we've got a new business model. And what can we do to use kind of this abundance, if you will, or these new opportunities to make sure that we stay sustainable if and when this happens again? And we have to be planning for and are planning for the idea of, again, assessment, understanding conditions, understand where we're at. So our assessment tells us, just looking at the data, which is news reports, CDC, that there might be another peak in the curve of the pandemic come winter. So we are not going to scale back up because of new opportunities. We're going to continue to stay lean and look at every opportunity that comes our way. So two things here. Number one, don't move too quickly to scale back up if you scale down. And number two, think about if and when you have an opportunity to do so, if you actually want to go back to doing it the old way, or this is an opportunity to innovate.
Got you, got you. So don't move too fast. Don't scale too fast. Just really think about what makes the most sense. Thank you. Thank you for that. That was a great segue into the next question, which was about your interaction with public sector clients. So, of course, you know, my whole thing and one of the main focuses for Amplify Charlotte is, you know, educating other small businesses about working with government and government opportunities. And so I want you to talk a little bit about the diversity of your clientele and what's been your experience with the public sector.
Sure. Most of our clients are private nonprofit organizations. We do have some public sector clients, which include schools and school districts. Our public sector clients also include in North Carolina here, we've done 2 projects, one which we're currently under contract for Mecklenburg County. And we just wrapped up a project with the city of Salisbury. I'll say a little bit more about just, and I think this is where you're headed, Christine, just the differences. I'll say a little bit about that. I think increasingly folks recognize that public sector clients bring more stability, just in terms of kind of contractually the way they operate. And so a lot of organizations that are looking for long-term stability are looking to have public sector clients, including ours. There's also questions that organizations like mine, which are small, have to think about in terms of if and when we scale to do federal level contracts. And so we think about public sector from that perspective also. And we've had good experiences with our public sector clients. We recognize that sometimes the public sector might not be as nimble, like things don't happen as quickly, which can be one of the challenges of working with them. And we also recognize as a strength that they're very consistent in carrying out the terms of the contract. And I've had good experiences with procurement officers being really good about communication and expectations.
Good. I've had some good experiences, and I've had challenges as well. But I just think it's so important to have a diverse, you know, portfolio of clientele that you serve. And you're right. I mean, with the public sector, it's very accountable. It's stable. You know, once you actually get in and you are contracted, it's guaranteed. And also, when you think about the dollars that are set aside for minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses, it's there for you. And it's important to get in a diverse offering of services. I had the pleasure of listening to, I think it was the city has a task force. The city has a small business task force, and they air the meetings on Facebook Live. And so I was listening to the lead of, I think it was the D. Wilson Agency, and she was saying that somebody reached out to her in the fall and said, hey, do you want to partner on this project? And she said, well, no, now's not a good time. But since COVID hit, that person has reached back out and said, hey, remember when I was asking you about medical supplies and supplier diversity? Boom. And so really just building those opportunities and building those relationships, rather, is the most important part of landing these public sector contracts. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Sure. I would just add also, like, that's a great point, Christine. And the minority-owned business, woman-owned business, small business certifications are hugely important. We're certified as minority-owned small business with the city, the county, the state. And what I found is that national organizations that are looking for local partners to, you know, ensure that they meet those contractual obligations for subcontractors at some regular interval, like once every 3 months, once every 6 months, I'll get an email that just said, hey, we're looking for partners locally that are minority owned or small businesses or women owned businesses. And would you be interested in partnering on this? So just agreeing with you that those opportunities definitely exist for small businesses, minority owned businesses, and women owned businesses, and to try to take advantage of those certifications.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I have a couple more questions. I want to encourage you all that are attending. We're moving into the Q&A portion in just a second. So if you could just type in your questions in the Q&A then we can get started with that. Christian, so my next question is, what's your biggest takeaway from this pandemic, as a small business operator? What's your biggest takeaway? And then what are you most looking forward to after all this is over?
So I think I've got three things, actually, the biggest takeaways. Number one is invest in people. And so I had some advice early on, like as I was building consulting business, from another consultant who was like, hey, the way is don't get too deep in with anyone. They had a quote unquote love them or leave them philosophy of their consulting business. Like don't create long-term relationships with clients. And so what I can say is, because it's my personality to like get to know people and spend time with people, I'm relational, that has really benefited me during this downturn. And so I invest a lot of time and energy in relationships, and I think that has paid off, number one. The second thing I would say is, up to this point in my life, I've kind of leaned on this philosophy that if it's predictable, it's manageable, which is a leadership lesson I learned years ago, and was really salient to me because we do a lot around research and data analysis and looking at the data. And part of the data is, how do we use data to predict what's going to happen? And so the big takeaway for me is like, it can still be manageable even though it's unpredictable. And so we're in a state now where it's unpredictable, but that doesn't mean you have to like throw up your hands and say, oh, there's nothing I can do in this environment. That's the second thing. So relationships are key. It's manageable even though it's not predictable. And then the final thing is adapt and overcome. And that's just this idea of you can stay mission focused, you can stick with your values and still be able to adapt to a changing environment. And so adaptation doesn't mean you have to throw everything out, right? It doesn't mean you have to shut down and shutter the doors. It does mean that there might be changes you need to make. It means you need to revisit the plan. And it means the plan might change, but you can kind of overcome challenging circumstances if you're willing to adapt.
Thank you. Quick follow-up. I want to encourage you all to go ahead and type your questions in the Q&A. Quick follow-up on that though. Can you share with us some local resources that have been helpful for you? I'm thinking about local meetup groups, local, web online resources that have been really helpful for you.
Yeah, I don't have kind of go-to groups with, again, that first point around relationships. Like I do regular check-ins with other small business people who I partner with, who are what I would say are my friends. So during this time, I've been intentional about kind of reaching out to rekindle connections, just to honestly check on folks. And even this morning, it's someone who I had spoken to, who I would count as a friend, who works in communications, who reached out and said, hey, we need to connect, and said it might be about a project. And so those are the places where kind of I find kind of enrichment and growth opportunities. And for some folks, that's more comfortable, right? Some of us influence connect one-on-one. Some of us influence connect small groups. Some of us influence connect in institutions and organizations. And I'm just more of a one-on-one connection type of a person.
Got you. Yeah, that's been helpful for me too. Just checking in with my business friends every now and then, and or just saying, hey, did you hear about this opportunity? Things like that. Just kind of on a more casual scale has been really helpful. But also, I do tend to like a little bit of structure too. So, I do like going to the Packard Place meetup events on Wednesdays, just to kind of let loose a little bit and learn about, what folks are doing. I've been enjoying this is kind of my government nerd side coming out, but I enjoy watching board meetings and city council meetings, just to learn and understand what decisions they're making. They also have been broadcasting the zoning meetings. So, all of those are very helpful to understand what's going on in the community. Construction is still happening. Development is still happening.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, even if you don't, you're not a big construction company, you still have something to add in terms of our community development. And that's really the point that I want to drive home. We have about 14 minutes left.
Christine, before we leave this point, I'll just say one more thing here. And that's just that what I found is like being on the nonprofit boards have been really helpful to me also. Like, just seeing how they react. I've worked with one nonprofit at the charter school that has applied for and received an SBA loan. And I've worked for some others that are listed on my resume, some that aren't, but it's a bunch of nonprofits, seeing how they react and being able to give advice, but also these end up being case studies, if you will, that help me learn about kind of how they're operating and what lessons I can take from them.
That's a good point. I had not thought about that. That is a good point. Very good. So we're going to switch gears. I would love to answer some questions from y'all. And if Dr. Friend can answer any questions for y'all, let us know. All right. Let's see here. Does anybody have any questions for us today? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen again. Oh, wait, we have one pop up. Okay. Heading into recovery mode, what are the best ways to position yourself?
Yeah. And then there looks like one in the chat there. What's your personal process for exploring new opportunities for your business? Okay, so I'll start with the recovery mode question.
Yeah, into recovery mode. Yeah.
So for me, like our business is not in recovery mode. I'll be clear about that. I understand that, Mecklenburg County is about to reopen, that there are some states that are saying, oh, we're going to reopen. But as I alluded to earlier, we as a business are in a position to say for 2020 and perhaps headed into 2021, we need to operate very lean. Now, if opportunities avail themselves, great, right? But we are not going to ramp up as if it's recovery mode. Now, this is different for people who are in, a sales environment, right? Particularly like if it's retail sales, that's completely different because you need foot traffic and customers. And so I can't honestly address that. It's just not my area of expertise. But from a consultative standpoint, even from Central Piedmont Community College, from a government entity, a human service, if you will, I think it's wise to say, okay, let's stay lean until we get into 2021 and we know that we're secure, and then we could ramp up. And when I say ramp up, what I'm talking about is some folks said, as the downturn started, like now's the time to invest in your marketing plans. And that has not been our case. And this goes to answer to the second question, right? We are not investing money in marketing just because we want to sustain operations and we're going to be as lean as possible. What we can do in terms of marketing, which would kind of answer that question of personal process, is we found that in order to be sustainable, what we need is repeat business. We need a consistent base of clients, and it needs to, as Christina alluded to be diverse. And so we're reaching out to and staying connected to our existing clients as much as possible. We are also assessing, like, as we're becoming leaner and we need less to operate, are there client engagements where we're not getting return on investment? So there are places we're investing a lot of time and energy and we're not getting kind of the funding back that time and energy involves. And so if we're in a position now to kind of let that contract expire and not renew at the same rate, then we're going to take advantage of that and be prepared that when things open back up, if you will, which we're thinking about as 2021, really middle of 2021, then we're in a position where we have time and effort available that we can contract at a higher rate.
Got it. What is your personal process for exploring new opportunities for your business?
Yeah, And so again, that goes back to this idea of relationships for us. And I'm talking about as one-on-one, and that's not always a phone call. Like we utilize social media really heavily. And so we, on social media, we understand who our client base is, and our client base is largely for-profit human service agencies. So I try to stay connected to the decision makers in those organizations, which would be board members, board chairs in particular, executive directors, and chief executive officers of those organizations. I have a natural network of those folks because 20 years of experience working in those organizations. And here in Charlotte, it's a pretty tight-knit group. But whatever your market is, even if you say, oh, my market is restaurants. Well, how are you connecting with restaurant owners? How are you connecting with restaurant managers? So I would say it's the forming of personal relationships with decision makers in our client organization.
Okay. I'll just share really quickly how I find new opportunities. Sometimes the opportunities just kind of come to me and come to Amplify because of the niche that we serve. We are one of the only minority-owned and women-owned community engagement firms in Charlotte. There are a lot of marketing firms, a lot of marketing, a lot of PR, but we don't specialize in marketing and PR. We specialize in engagement. And so my past 2 contracts have come to me from outside of the state because we're listed as a MWSBE on our website. So certification is really important.
Good point.
So the next question that I saw come through was, can you name specific things to think about when working in uncertainty? What can be managed, what cannot be managed?
Yeah. So specific things, and this is, I don't know if this is answering the question, but for me, what can be managed, the most important thing that can be managed is my psyche and attitude, right? And so like one of the things that this environment will breed is distrust, lack of hope, frustration. And so just to be frank, like I have to be really careful to be intentional about not letting myself be ruled by emotions at this time and making emotional decisions. And so what continues to be controllable is to be able to do some assessment of what's going on, to create a plan based on the data that you do have, and then to try and implement that plan. And that's why we stick so tightly to that continuous improvement process, is because it kind of eliminates some of the confounding variables, if you will, or the human emotion that can play so heavily into business decisions, is to be able to say, am I making this decision based on data, or is it just how I feel? And so I think about, even to be, completely transparent and honest, when we clean off the whiteboard and say, what are our next steps? One of those options listed as we're doing our assessment is, do we shut this thing down and find other opportunities elsewhere? And so I'm using that as an example just to say, if emotion were to rule that decision, it could turn out very differently than if data rules the decision. And so that is the one most specific thing I think about in terms of working with uncertainty, is making sure that you're looking at data and being data informed and not led by emotion.
Mm-hmm. That's very good. One of the questions listed, I think you touched on this already, but can you share from your current experience, what advice would you give businesses about partnering and building relationships during the time of COVID-19?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the question, it kind of answers itself. Like, I think, let me look real quick. It was Jamila who asked the question. Jamila, I don't know you personally, but I feel like you're probably on it. Like, you probably know that how important it is to partner at this time and to seek out those partnership opportunities. And I would agree. Just the fact that you're asking the question points to that. And so that's one of the things we're doing. That's one of the things on our whiteboard. And it's everything from continue to operate as we are, to just do some small budget cuts, to shut the doors. And somewhere in between there are mergers, acquisitions, right? Is it an option to say CA Friend Consulting doesn't exist anymore and we work for another organization? Is it possible to say that another organization ceases to exist and they just come on as CA Friend Consulting and we take a share of their contracts? Is it possible to shift my time and effort as CEO to do something different and then continue the business? So it's important, going back to that part of the assessment being exploring all opportunities. Part of those opportunities, and a big part, is partnerships, who our collaborative partners are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Oh, and Jamila knows. She definitely knows the importance. Trust me. So she also says, I love your insight on staying lean and strengthening your current practices, development and relationships with current clients. We talk to businesses about this always. Thank you for that comment, Jamila. We appreciate that. So do I have any other questions in the Q&A? No. All right. So yeah, thank you guys for those questions, and thank you for your response. So I'm going to share my screen one more time as we wrap up. I hope you guys have enjoyed this over your lunch hour. And after we get done, we're actually going to be sending out an email, just a recap email with the webinar recording and and this additional information. So thank you all. I would love for you to keep in touch. Join our community, sign up for our email list, like our Facebook page. We're going to be having more, I don't know if we're going to be having more virtual events soon, but we're definitely going to be having more resources coming out, whether it's blog posts, email newsletters. A lot of good information is going to be coming out this summer. I encourage you to snag the DIY Small Business Certification resource, or rather purchase it. Right now, it is on the website available for purchase, and it is on sale. And what the DIY resource is, it's called You've Got the Keys, as you can see right here. It's a downloadable folder containing all of the applications for the state level and the city and county level minority business certifications. And I've created this folder so that you don't have to go all across the internet searching for it. It's all right there for you, and it's on sale right now. The next offer that we have is the Small Business Certification Done For You service. And what this looks like is I, as a certification specialist, will walk you through the process hand in hand. In order to learn more about that, you can go ahead and schedule a free consultation and get on a call with me, and I can tell you all about it. Next, we also have, CAFriendConsulting.com. If you are interested in working with Christian, I would encourage you to reach out. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you being here. And I don't see any other questions coming up or comments. So I'm going to go ahead and end our event. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Friend, for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you. All right. Bye, y'all.